Hey everyone, welcome to this Ask a Coach episode. Ask a Coach episodes are recorded by me or a member of my team in response to a question that we have gotten in the program. In the program, there's a feature called Ask a Coach where you can submit questions, you can submit worksheets, you can submit anything you need coaching on, and we respond to you within, 24, 48 hours. This is a lifetime access thing, so you can submit as much as you would like, as often as you would like, and get tons and tons and tons of coaching. It's one of my favorite aspects of the program. If you want to join us and get your own questions submitted and get tons of coaching, come to centerforovercomingpornography.com/work with me. Please enjoy this coaching from one of the coaches in our program. Welcome to the Overcome Pornography for Good podcast, where we take a research-based, trauma-informed, and results-focused approach to quitting porn. This approach has been revolutionary and changed thousands and thousands of lives. I'm your host, Sarah Brewer.
Hey, it's Kat, a coach here in the Overcome Pornography for Good program. I am so excited to be here with you today. I've got a lot of questions recently from clients about processing urges and wondering if they are quote unquote doing it right. Or they're feeling like they've been trying and processing and doing all this work, but it just seems like maybe it's not working or it's not sticking. That's kind of the words and the verbiage that they've been using. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that today and maybe give you kind of a new perspective on how to show up for processing urges. And maybe today you'll discover a new quote unquote way to try this that might help you get better results. Maybe. I don't know. You could test it out though and see how this works for you. Because what do we do if we want to get really good at something? Let's say we want to get really good at processing urges. Doesn't matter what that thing is, but we got to practice, right? So you have to practice that thing. I took piano lessons as a kid, but it never really stuck for me because I didn't practice. So I can't really play the piano. I could probably plunk out some, keys and sort of read the music, but it will take me a really long time. It's kind of hard. It's tedious. But if I wanted to get good at playing the piano, all I would need to do was practice. I'd have to keep showing up for it, right? Okay, so we've established that if you want to get good at processing urges, you need to practice processing urges. So you might be thinking, I've already done that. I've been doing that, right? Like this is what we're here today to talk about. So maybe it's not just in the practicing. I mean, the practicing is good, right? We have to practice. But maybe it's in the conditions in which you are practicing processing those emotions that's holding you back. So let me explain. Let's say we throw a man who doesn't know how to swim in the deep end of the pool. He can probably figure out how to get himself to safety, right? He can figure out how to get himself to the other side of the pool or to the edge so that he's no longer in the midst of drowning, right? But did he learn how to swim? Probably not. He did figure out how to get himself out of the imminent danger that he was in, but he's not going to become a swimmer or be able to replicate swimming just from that one time, right? Just being thrown in the water. So that's just one example, right? Think about this. Why is he not a good swimmer even though he's got thrown in the water? Because he didn't learn. He didn't learn how to swim. If he just learned how to keep himself out of danger in a crisis situation. So thinking about this, are you only practicing processing your urges when you're under pressure and in the heat of the moment? When you're kind of in a crisis situation, when the conditions are like you're in offline state and you're in a state of fight or flight? Think about that. When it feels like you could drown because you got thrown into the deep end of the pool and that's the only time you're processing, are you really learning how to process urges? Maybe not, right? So Edward Tolman, after some experimenting, he found out about what he calls latent learning. So latent learning is learning something that occurs but is not immediately evident in your behavior until there is a reason to demonstrate it. So he did several experiments, but one sort of experiment to demonstrate this, and especially this concept that we're talking about processing our urges or practicing processing only in, pressure situations. So kind of what we want to talk about today is how to process our urges without pressure, okay? So what he found out is he took two sets of rats, one set that was really well fed. They weren't under pressure, no imminent danger for them. They didn't really need to go find food. And then the other set of rats hadn't eaten in 36 hours, so they were really hungry, okay? So he let them loose in the maze, same maze, food in the same place. The well-fed rats had time to explore and eventually find the food, okay? So they took time to see kind of all the places that the food wasn't, as well as where the food was. But the other set of the hungry rats, they ended up just going to the food. That was their only objective, right? Was to just find the food. But what did they learn about the maze? Not much, right? They didn't take the time to explore. So he set these two rats in the same maze where the food is in a new location, and the rats that had time to explore the maze without the pressure found the food faster and with more ease than the hungry rats who had only learned under pressure the one way of finding the food. And so they continued to go back there looking for the food when the food was somewhere else. So Tolman found out that we create these cognitive maps while we're learning. So when we're in a situation where there's not too much pressure, the pressure isn't intense, we're not in a crisis situation, the map can be broad and general. Okay, so we start to build these maps where we can kind of experiments, where we can kind of give ourselves options to see other ways, to see other things. But when we're over motivated, when we're stimulated, when we're processing under stress, now our maps are really narrow and restrictive that we've formed. And so it keeps us really stuck in one way. So thinking about this in terms of processing urges, if we're only processing our urges when we're stimulated, when we're under quote unquote attack, right? When we're in these places of stress, and then it's going to be really hard to create big, broad maps where processing urges can happen in any time, in any place, in any way. We might learn to process our urges only when we're feeling under attack or when we're feeling triggered. So in the future, if we do it this way, then our map becomes blocked and you become frustrated, right? And you start to fail to see alternative routes or detours or different ways to go if we're talking about it in the terms of a map. So if we're only learning how to process those urges when we're triggered or when we're in certain states or in certain times, we really develop a singular response and we don't learn to improvise. So the pressure actually stops our learning. It halts learning and it halts growth. And especially because the more intense the situation, so if we're feeling really strong urges in which we're like, the urge feels really strong, that's how we might describe it. And we're only learning in those situations, we actually learn less. And so I want to offer, right, today that what you might want to do in processing your urges is create spaces where there's no pressure. So we start to practice processing the urges when we're not under that pressure. So practicing urges without the pressure, so that we can start to create our cognitive maps that are broad and we can start to learn faster and with more ease. So, one thing to remember here is that what we want to do is we want to get out of that fight or flight brain, that offline state where there's a lot of pressure when you're in that situation, right? Because when you practice without pressure in this online state, you create freedom to explore, freedom to make mistakes without consequences. We're not locked into like, oh, this urge is really strong. What am I going to do? It feels like so much pressure, right? Like the urge is here. That creates so much pressure, right? And we don't want that because that stunts our learning. Okay. So when you allow yourself to practice without pressure, we also get to engage our imagination. You get into a state of flow and living in this present moment instead of under that pressure of like, can I do this? Can I not? So I want you to maybe try this, to try practicing without the pressure. Try practicing processing your urges when in an online state because it can become so much easier than when we try to process those in the heat of the moment. So when you try this new way of processing, like we were kind of talking about this latent learning, it might feel like you're not really trying at all, right? You're like, I'm not really doing anything. I'm just imagining what it's going to look like. And you might question how this will help improve your performance. But I want you to try it. So what does this look like? So hopefully I've inspired you to maybe give this a try, to attempt practicing without the pressure and see how that goes. And so what does practicing the processing the urges without pressure look like? If you're in the program and you've ever been to one of my coaching calls, you probably know how much I love visualization. And so that's pretty much exactly what this is. And if you're in the program and you filled out a learn and move on, there's that question that tells you or asks you to go visualize what you would do differently, what it would look like. So I find the easiest way to do this is to take a recent example. So if you filled out a learn and move on, or if you have a recent urge that you might have experienced, think about that. Think back to the last time that you either processed an urge or you had an urge and didn't process it. It doesn't matter. Either one of these ways is a beautiful way to practice without pressure, because now after the fact, hopefully we're in an online state. So please do this when you're feeling online, when you're feeling really good. Don't try to do this under pressure again when you're feeling in a, judgy sort of way about yourself. So think about that last time that you had an urge, how you processed it, what it looked like. And then I want you to imagine what the ideal situation for processing that urge would be. Think about maybe how you felt in that moment, how you would sit with those feelings, what that would feel like to sit with the urge and just let it be there and not have to push it away or not give into it and just go to porn. Like, what does it look like to just allow the urge to be there? And practice this in a time and a place where there's no pressure. Just like athletes who practice and practice and practice before the big game, that's what this is. We just show up and we practice. What does this look like? What will I do? How will I do it? And there's no pressure, right? There's no consequences when we're doing it in this really beautiful visualization state. And our brain doesn't care if we're doing it in the heat of the moment or if we're doing it outside of that without pressure. And we're going to get really good if we do it without pressure because we're going to have all the time in the world to explore the map, to look at the things, to decide what that's going to look like, to find the escape routes and the exits without a fire coming and we have to really get out there. Like then we're not scared. If you have questions about this, let us know, but give it a try. I'd love to hear if you try this, how it goes, because I think it's really exciting. I think it's a beautiful way to practice. So think about processing your urges without pressure. Practice without pressure. Try it and see how that goes with your urges. And thanks for letting me be here today. Have a good one, you guys. Bye.
I want to invite you to come and listen to my free class, How to Overcome Pornography for Good Without Using Willpower. We talk about how to stop giving into urges without pure willpower or relying on phone filters so that you can actually stop wanting pornography. We talk about how to stop giving up after a few weeks or months. And spoiler alert, the answer isn't have more willpower. And then lastly, we talk about how to make a life without porn easily sustainable and permanent. If you're trying to quit porn, this class is a game changer. So you can go and sign up at sarahbrewer.com/masterclass, and it is totally free.